All right, so for this week's Bitcoin Basics, or I should say this month's Bitcoin Basics, we are going to be covering the importance of seed phrases. What are they? Where do they come from? Why you need to keep track of them, and best practices for storing those. So to get started though, where does the seed phrase come from and what is that relationship with your Bitcoin? So to get there, we need to start with what is a Bitcoin key even? What is a Bitcoin private key? So a Bitcoin private key is essentially a long code or random secret number, 256 bits to be exact, that actually unlocks your Bitcoin address and therefore allows you to spend it. It is creating a unique digital signature when it does that and has a corresponding individual public key with it. Now, what does that relationship look like between those things though? So this graph kind of shows us a little bit of visualization of that. So when we have a private key or a seed phrase, we then derive a public key from that, and from that public key, an address is formed. That address is where you send or receive Bitcoin, and then you use the private key associated with it to unlock it or spend it. Now, what then is a seed phrase? Well, a seed phrase is a visual representation of this Bitcoin private key. It is a code that represents it. Sometimes it's considered a backup or recovery for the key held on your hardware device. When you have that piece of paper, it's a word list, right? Between 12 and 24 words. If you've worked with our concierge onboarding team, you probably walked through the process of writing those down. That is the same information that is being held on that hardware device of yours. If something happens to the device, because, hey, things happen, right? Devices break, they malfunction. We always want to have a physical backup to then be able to load back into the device so that you don't lose access to your Bitcoin. The seed phrase is the physical backup of that. It is cross-compatible among devices, so just because you change device doesn't necessarily mean you have to replace the seed phrase, which we have a great article on that too that we'll share. And of course, with this, what do we do with the seed phrase? Well, we know that it's very, very vital, right? It is the key to your wealth. We need to keep it safe. It is the most important item to protect, and you always, always want to secure it physically. You don't want to share it with anyone. You're never, ever going to input it into a computer, and no one legitimate is ever going to ask you for it. You shouldn't share it with your attorney. You shouldn't share it with anyone, right? This is the key to your wealth. And you should not store it on cloud storage. That can be easily accessed. We always want to keep it offline and physical. Now, with that being said, if you now understand the importance of your seed phrase, but you maybe don't understand where you should be storing it, now that you know you need to keep it physical, you need to not keep it digital, you need to not share it with anyone, we have an article to walk you through every step of that. So Drew is going to be sharing that in chat. After this webinar, walk through the process, walk through that article, and really start to think about your best practices for storage of this. Very, very vital information. That seed phrase is the key to your wealth. Keep it safe. With that, that wraps up our Bitcoin Basics for this month's continuing education.